Hey, you are in for a huge treat because today I have one of my favorite people that I've been able to introduce into my world in the last few years, Rachel Fleischer from Young Invincibles, and you're going to get a chance to hear the perspective of young people and specifically thinking through the policy lens, how we can do a better job making sure that we're building policy and experiences around the people who actually use them. Can you share who Young Invincibles is for folks who are just off the street and wouldn't have any idea?
Sure. We also go by YI in case you want our awesome merch. So Young Invincibles is a nonprofit, nonpartisan, super kick-ass advocacy organization that is dedicated to expanding economic opportunity for young people. Young adults, 18 to 34, it's a big window. A lot of people fall in there. And we're not just an organization that's about policy change for young people. We actually center young people in that work, and they are driving the very policy change that we are fighting for. So we've got these incredible programs across the country, paid internship programs and advisory boards where young people will participate, oftentimes get compensated for their brain time, and help us think about the policy change that young people need today and put together campaigns to help drive those very changes forward. And we work at the intersection of a couple of key areas that we kind of put a circle around them and talk about them as economic opportunity, access to healthcare, access to quality higher ed, access to good jobs, and student voting. So those are kind of the issue areas that we work around. We work on federal policy change. We've got 5 regional offices across the country, one in New York, one in Illinois, one in Texas, one in Colorado, and one in California. And it's all those people across the country with our incredible regional teams and the young people on the ground that are Young Invincibles. That's what we are.
How many offices do you have then?
Well, we've got 6 offises altogether, one here in DC and 5 more across the country. In fact, we kind of have 2 in Texas. We've got one in Austin and one in Houston. So something like 7. I would say we're small and mighty. We are very resourceful. And every single person who works at Young Invincibles or goes through the Young Invincibles programs is very powerful.
Awesome. How old is Young Invincibles?
Young Invincibles just turned 10. So we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary this year. And we actually, our origin story, for those who know us kind of in the higher ed space, which is how Bridget and I met in the higher education space, because Bridget is doing incredible work transforming the higher education landscape across the country. I was fortunate to meet Bridget at a super fun conference, but we bonded immediately. I think we were drawn to each other's energy. And speaking of energy, folks might remember the big political debate in 2009 around the Affordable Care Act, when all those politicians were talking about how this was never going to work and how young people don't care about healthcare and they're just those young invincibles and this is never going to work. And so the organization sort of was born through that moment when our founders, 5 grad students at the time, decided it was time for politicians to stop talking about young people and start listening to young people. And that's been our DNA since day one. And we continue to fight for young people, with young people across all those issue areas that I talked about before. But I think it's important to understand our origin story because it's sort of it's the fire in our belly.
And it makes, for folks who are trying to draw the connection, the UIA is fighting for trying to equip institutions with the tools they need to be able to redesign their work around the real students of today, so that we can stop not the idea of what a student is and actually based on their real lived experience. And you're about showing up with that kind of focus and fire in policy and in other circles as well. But you actually bring young people to be the ones who are actually talking about these things, so that it's not just kind of a third, a game of telephone of what people want.
Yeah, it's really, really important to us that we ground our work in the lived experiences of young people, and that they can then ground the, sort of the political conversations and their lived experiences. And so a lot of times we have our advocates go and testify at state houses, sometimes in congressional hearings in DC, a lot of work both on social media and old-fashioned traditional media, op-eds, et cetera, where we're not authoring pieces. We're not even pushing it out ourselves. It's the young people that we work with who decide that they want to share their stories in any number of ways, including with traditional media outlets, including through their social media platforms. And our job is just to give them a microphone.
Yeah. And so So one of the things that we talked about, so we know each other from the Gates Scaling Partners, and one of the benefits of the Scaling Partners is that we talk about stuff that we just kind of get to know each other, and then we brainstorm. And one of the things that you and I were talking about in terms of brainstorming is, we have to find a different way to address this growing narrative that is about the skepticism about going to college. And people are not going to believe universities talking about this. They actually want people, people who are physically living the experience and who are credible as those who had their lives changed by higher education, who are currently in higher education. But those voices, I think you have a je ne sais quoi ability to kind of like tap into, to mobilize, and to actually be able to leverage in a way that I don't think other organizations have really figured out. So I'm pumped about you having that skill, but can you talk about that?
Yeah, let's talk about that. I mean, the thing for Young Invincibles is that all of the opportunities that we have to elevate student voice are grounded in one-on-one real relationships on the ground. That's a little repetitive, but you know what I'm trying to say here. In that through these paid internship programs that I talked about, through the advisory board programs, our regional teams develop incredible relationships with young adults in their communities, and they trust us, we trust them. So it's very much a reciprocal, mutually beneficial relationship where they then know that their power is in their story, right? And they get super comfortable sharing their stories because they know how important those stories are in driving policy change. And the more young people we can get to build that confidence to know that their stories matter, the louder they're going to get. And the more that we as organizations and allies and partners in this ecosystem can give young people more of a platform to help them share their stories with each other and with elected officials, I think the more we're going to be able to create the radical change that we're trying to make happen here. And so it's really a pleasure. It's one of the best parts of this job is seeing what happens when a young person finds their voice and gets activated, and then it never shuts off. They just want more. And that's our job, is to, feed that appetite as much as possible and make sure that we're opening up other opportunities for an endless cycle of engagement.
See, I think that's so different. Whereas universities, while we might have access to young people and students, some of which are young people, that relationship can often feel a little transactional. It can feel like, hey, we're going to need you for 10 minutes or on video for 5 seconds, but you're actually making sure that not only are you grounding your work in their voice, you're making sure that the policy decisions and kind of how you look, the framework you look through is informed by them because they're actually in the work. So it's for those who are trying to figure out how is this different, what higher ed could learn from Young Invincibles, it's you need a partner who actually is credible with the people you're trying to serve and support. And I don't know that we're always the best in terms of cultivating that voice, and we often do it for 5 minutes at a time or in short turnaround, but we don't really build that long-term connection.
Yeah, but what's exciting is that in those offices that I talked about across the country, we have really good relationships with a number of community colleges, public universities, private universities, you name it. And so what we're trying to do is be able to connect with more young people who are going through the higher education process wherever they are, and make sure that they have an opportunity to connect with YI and then take everything that they're learning back to their university or college and really spearhead the kind of change that we're talking about. We see a lot of progress, for example, on mental health access in universities in Colorado, specifically in Denver. And that's because we, have a set of young people who were so committed to making sure that mental health and mental health care and access to services were made a priority on their campuses. So that's what they designed all their projects around. And now they're taking all that back to the university. So I really think it could be a partnership in a way. Like a university has a lot to think about. And of course, you want them to center students in all their work, I think, but helping students understand how to activate themselves and their peers and drive change, it could be an interesting partnership where we would help more students on more campuses drive that kind of change that they're looking for.
Yeah, and it leads to long-term stuff. So I got my start from student activism. I was in student government, and I basically just like never left and got a different job. I just kind of hung out around universities and kind of like never found anything else nearly as compelling. And I got activated at a very young age, and I'm a ride or die, I guess, on higher ed.
Uh-huh.
And so if we really want to be able to do the hard work necessary to transform our institutions and policy to really serve the students of today and tomorrow, we're going to need more folks who are kind of committed over the long haul. And I think that Young Invincibles has a unique access to mobilizing that network. And also, I mean, I love thinking of you as the young person's AARP. And is that like?
Well, one funny story about AARP, they actually started to send me membership cards when I was 9. So I was probably the youngest member of AARP ever. Just, it's a funny personal story. But indeed, yeah, the whole point of Young Invincibles is to make sure we are providing unbiased, helpful information to young adults about, sort of these issue areas that we know impact them. So how to make sure that the FAFSA deadlines and how to fill out FAFSA, how to make sure you don't get screwed by your student loans, how to make sure that you understand your financial aid letters and can really read them and understand what is or isn't being offered to you. How do you make sure you're still signing up for health insurance if you're uninsured? And so it's because we're this source of unbiased information that then that's the beginning of that trust building. And then we're able to go deeper in these on-the-ground programs where we really spend 3, 6, 9 months together and build these incredible relationships. And then you see young people just take off. It's like fire. And the young people I'm talking about here, it's really important to make sure that I give them the voice. We have incredible student parents in our program. We have many, many first-generation students. We have a ton of students who are also working full-time jobs, and a lot of immigrant students who are juggling a whole lot of things for their families at an incredibly difficult and stressful time in this country. That's Young Invincibles. Those are the young people who are participating in our program. And we're lucky to be able to have figured out a way to create a space for them to engage in this way.
Awesome. All right. Well, so I think everyone here can clearly see why you are the firecracker that we hang out with. So I'm glad that you're putting your energy into such a worthy cause. Turning to how you survive in these complicated jobs, I always ask, how are y'all doing it? So do you have any, what is a tip or a trick or how do you manage to get through your inbox at the end of the day or leave work and feel like you got to win when I know that you are triaging crises left and right all day? So any tips for the audience about how to do it?
Yeah, I mean, I've got 2 little boys at home. So if I want to get a chance to see them before they go to bed, then I got to pick myself up and rush home before all my emails are responded to. And I just told myself a while ago that I was never going to be able to respond to all my emails before the end of the day. And I also am a super early bird. I think many of my colleagues in the office can attest to that. I get a lot done between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. So that's my personal time, whether it's going for a jog, getting some emails out the door. I say 9 a.m. My kids get up at 7, but so between 6 and 7. But that's the power hour for me.
Yeah, I feel you on that. I'm a morning person too. Okay, so that's helpful. And then you also travel a bit, especially because you have a national presence. Any travel hack that allows you to survive and keep your sanity and also get the work done?
I just have extra chargers packed in any suitcase. So because the number of times I've dropped $100 to get a charger at an airport, that won't happen again. So fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times, I'm going to buy all the chargers in the world and keep them everywhere. So I never have to buy another charger again. And
it always happens when you're on an important call and the only charger available is $73.
Oh, no. I mean, it was it was definitely... I actually think it was going to the first Scaling Partners meeting where I got to meet you. So it was worth it, Bridget.
It was money. That was an investment.
That was an investment. And I will say for all the folks following that, Bridget is one of the most remarkable people that I've met thus far in my journey here and has been really just a huge mentor thus far. And I know will be moving forward. So it's really fun to be able to come together like this. But I think everybody at UIA knows, but for all the YI people, Bridget Burns, man, follow her.
Well, thank you. But I'm this is mutual fandom.
Gosh.
There's a mutual emergent society. So, Well, thank you so much. And thank you for taking the time to explain Young Invincibles and helping people think differently about what are the organizations that you're not thinking about that need to be a part of this work. Like this transformation work that we're trying to do, it cannot just be universities. It cannot just be people who live and focus on state policy. It cannot just, it's got to be thinking about the broader ecosystem and whose voices are not included. And are we just using those voices in a transactional way, or are we investing in those communities long term? So I feel like Young Invincibles is a great model of that, and I'm super excited they're being led by my friend and now yours, Rachel Fleischer. So for folks who want to connect with you and who want to sync up with Young Invincibles, where is the best way for them to connect with you?
Well, you can follow us on Facebook. And we're on Twitter. We're very active on Twitter at Young Invincible. And you can check out our website, and there's all different ways that you can get in touch with us through our website. You can also read bios of our advisory board members, which is super cool. Not only can you read about our staff who works here, but all the young adults who participate in our advisory board. So I highly recommend you check that out.
Awesome. Okay, so folks, you heard it here, Young Invincibles. Keep your eye on Rachel. And I hope you'll come back on again, and especially as we think about how we're going to change the narrative around higher ed. I think you're a fantastic resource for us to rethink.
Yeah, so maybe next time we could have one of our advisory board members join us too.
Ooh, that sounds fancy. I like it.
Awesome.
All right, we'll make it happen. All right, thanks everybody. Have a great day.